So, for today's episode of the podcast, we wanted to try something a little bit different. This was a topic that came up, um, somewhat just emerged in one of our coach mastermind conversations. And certainly we talked about it, but then we decided to kind of put a pin in it, hit pause, and come back together and discuss this as a group. I think, all four of us and a few other folks may join as the conversation goes on. Have a different kind of a different take on this topic. And so you're going to hear a little bit of healthy debate, if you will. And the topic, I'll introduce the topic, then we'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll dive in. So we want to talk about coaching through chaos. That and I think the particular framework that we'd like to use is picture a 2 by 2 diagram, and we'll get a visual going, similar to the Eisenhower matrix, right? And across the top is clients, and across the side is coaches. And the metric is regular or intense for clients and regular or intense for coaches. So is the chaos level for a given client at a given interaction regular or intense? And is the chaos level for a coach at a given interaction regular or intense? And so there's four boxes that we could be in depending on where the client is and where the coach is. And so we thought it was important to just acknowledge that both clients and coaches could be experiencing periods of brief or even sustained chaos, and that impacts, at least for some folks, how we think about coaching. So we'll frame it, and I guess Lydia, you want to help introduce our other folks?
I think let's introduce each other. Self-introduce. So maybe you go first.
All right. So I'm Kendra Kennison, head coach and CEO at Coachdotme. And because it's slightly relevant, I live in South Texas. And it's been a week for Texas.
All right. I'm Lidia. I'm a COO and coach training director at Coachdotme. I live in Israel, so honestly, the last 2.5 years it's been relevant, and we've just been through some major war. And I think me personally and what I see around me, we now experience PTSD or whatever comes after that. So I think this topic is very relevant for me. Erno?
Okay, so I'm Erno. I'm from the Netherlands, which is in Europe. I'm an executive coach. I coach entrepreneurs. I've been coaching on this platform since, I don't know, a long time. And oh yeah, I was in the second cohort of the HEC training. Um, and yeah, I live in, I would say, a reasonable, stable environment right now.
But they can be personal chaos, right? Erno? We're
Yeah.
not immune to that, correct?
No, of course not. No, of course not.
Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm owner of My Health Coach. So I've been health coaching slash personal training for 27 years. I live in a very beautiful part of Southern England, and sometimes we get road rage. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes you have to wait for cows to cross the road. So my life is pretty calm and straightforward. But I think that kind of ties into today's topic, because maybe what I see as calm, other people would see as chaos, and what I see as chaos, other people might see calm. So I'd say my life is not chaotic, where other people might look at it and go, well, it's pretty chaotic. So it's all relative, isn't it? So
I like that. I like that. And I think that's a really valid point, is that um it to some degree we've got to check in with ourselves to see how we're really feeling, to your point, and not let somebody say, oh well, because you live in Texas, you must be having a horrible week, right? Not let anybody project that chaos, and kind of the same time with the client, not assume that just because they're somewhere experiencing something that they're at a level. Great point. Um, all right. So, Chris, you've got a particular opinion on this. So I think let's rip the Band-Aid off and let you start the conversation. So I'd love to hear your take, because I think it's a great centering point.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose we spoke on Wednesday as a foursome, and we kind of talked about what you're going through, Kendra, and in Texas and so forth. And we thought, this is quite a common thing in people's lives and coaches' lives, because coaches are no different from our clients, because there's coaches that have coaches, so they become clients. So I think it's a very valid thing to talk about. I've always looked at it as you'd said, that just because you're in a certain place at a certain time, therefore it must be chaotic. I think it is very individual. I kind of use the example of my mum passed away end of 2019 from living a lifestyle that is kind of in keeping that she passed away at an early age. And I was very accepting of that. But it's really interesting that other people, I think, weren't, of my take on that chaotic part of my life. When a parent passes, I see a lot of people, react a certain way. But for me, I'm a bit of a realist. I was kind of like, there was not really any other outcome that was really there. So I'd got people all the time for quite a while saying, "Are you okay?" And I would say, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they go, "Yeah, but are you really okay? You can talk about it if you want to." And I was going, "There's nothing to talk about."
Mm.
And after a while, being asked so many times, I end up saying, "Yeah, it's tough at the moment, but I'm getting through it, and I got good people around me and stuff like that." Just so they'll go, "Oh, okay then," because they are projecting how they would react to that onto you, and if you don't react maybe in a way that they would expect, it must be another reason then, other than the one you're giving, because how can you be so calm about that? Now, on the other hand, I've got a lovely dog who's 13 years old. I can tell you now, when he passes, I will be in pieces. That's not saying anything about my mum or I don't love her or things like that. It's just a different
Sure.
thing, and therefore that'll be the time when I'll need people to talk to and stuff like that. So I think it's chaos in someone's life can be very specific to them and very personalized to them, and how they deal with it is how they deal with it. But I see a lot of people kind of being, I think too strong a word is conditioned to respond a certain way to a certain event. And if you don't, why is that? Why aren't you responding like everyone would expect to respond? And I think you might find a lot of people out there will come across that they're responding in a certain way when they're not really. They're just fitting in and saying what they feel that everyone should hear or want to hear. And therefore, I think that exaggerates the actual situation, because people going, well, look, everyone is finding it really tough, and therefore it must be tough. But maybe half those people are just saying they're finding it tough because it's just an easy life. To what I
So
do with my mum.
how do you shape how does your take on that and your understanding that it could be really personalized, how does that shape when a client loses a parent, or when a client is going through, um let's say you hear that a client loses a parent, and so they, to your point, to your experience, they could or they could not be in, um and we're gonna stick with chaos. I'm not sure that's the right word, but we'll stick with
Yeah,
it
yeah,
for purposes
yeah.
of of kind of the discussion. How would you approach that, given your own perspective?
I think the word chaos is appropriate because, it can really upturn your life and so forth. Um, in the last 2 weeks, I coach a brother and sister. They're in their 50s. Their mum's just passed away from a very short illness, got cancer. 6 weeks later, she's no longer with us. And it's interesting to see the difference between the brother and the sister and their response to it. One is finding it really tough. The other one is being quite pragmatic about it. Now, that might be because the other one is finding it really tough. And therefore, you always find someone who has to be more the rock, because you don't want both of you falling apart and then nothing getting done. So maybe the one who's more of a rock at the moment will have their moment in the future that is chaotic. So it's been interesting to see both of them in the same situation treated differently. So my coaching will be different for both of them. One has to be, you have to meet them where they are. Where the other one, it's like, okay, let's crack on from there. So I think that's, for me, a great example of, everyone's different in how you approach it. And I think from coaching, you're not always going to get it right. You're going to maybe say the wrong thing, not intentionally, but you just do. And you don't know at that moment in time the type of day they're having. Because one of the siblings the sibling who's finding it really tough, one day she was, I wasn't going to say the gender, but she said the sister, she was finding it really tough. And she sent me a message to the point where I'm not a therapist. I can't, this is this is not my role, but I understand why you're sharing it with me because we've got this relationship that I'm there to help and support and so forth. But what she messaged me wasn't in my field of expertise. But so I didn't respond because there was no way I could respond in a way that would be helpful. So I just left it and I treated it as she just wanted to express it. Next day, she had deleted that message and sent me a more positive one.
Mm.
So maybe if I had messaged her on that first one, maybe I would have made the situation even worse. She possibly walked away and thought about it. Oh, okay, I'm seeing it in a different way now and so forth. And the next day, her messaging was a lot more positive.
So you just held the space,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But her brother, on the other hand, he's like saying, well, come on, what are we doing now? Okay. We're doing this and doing that. So as a coach, you've just got to meet the client where they are. There is a tendency, maybe I'm less of a person who will go, are you okay? I'm more like, okay, what do we need to do? So maybe that's not right for everyone at a certain time. And that's where you can hit and miss. But I think as a coach, you've got to be true to yourself and not try to be something that you're not. I remember when going back to my dog, we first got him 12 years ago. He came to where my clinic is and got clients there. And the way I was responding to him, some of my clients going, I've never seen this side of you. I was like, oh, he's my little boy. He's my son. And I said, we've never seen you like this. And he goes, well, yeah, I love dogs. I love animals. And therefore, maybe my response to them is different from humans or
From humans.
I don't know. But there is a side of you as a coach that your clients will never see or might get a glimpse of. And so if you said this is who I am as a coach and this is how our relationship is, it's very hard then to maybe be someone else because that they go, oh, who is this person? Oh, this is nothing like you.
Okay, so
So
let's put a pin in that one. I want to get to that coach side in a minute, but I want to ask Erno about when the coach is fine or regular, but you get a sense that your clients are, and you've got a whole different client group, entrepreneurs, so kind of a often whole different reasons to be feeling, in chaos. Kind of what's your strategy when you get a sense that a client is really struggling?
what my clients know about me is I have a stoic um, operating system, as I call it, right. So I'm very um, well organized, maybe that's a good way of saying it. But I'm also very deliberate of how I look at things, and I love the way that Marcus Aurelius describes the pains and the death and everything. Right, it's a philosophical view of the things. Um, and when I was thinking a couple of things when Chris was talking about, so for example, my parents died like in 9 months after each other. It was 3 years ago, and I was pretty fine too. I mean, I felt, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the end, right? So I have no parents anymore. But I never thought, oh, I'm an orphan now, because I hear people saying I'm an orphan now. I don't have that feeling. Right now, we are about to move from a house to a new house, so we're gonna clean up a lot of stuff. We're moving to a small house. I'm gonna throw out all the stuff that came with the funeral and everything, right? Because to me, it has no value. Everything that has value to me with my parents is inside me. That's memories that I carry. It's not really a useful thing to have this stuff around for me. But my sister is completely different. She sends messages in a candle every year in WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I support her. That's fine. And I had this client. It was a couple. Like there were a couple in business and a couple in, well, not actually, they had their own business, but they worked together. And they were a couple in life. And at one point, I coached them individually, and at some other points, they would came together, and they were one. One would be very touched sometimes with what I was saying, and questioning, asking what he was doing. And I went like, "Oh my gosh, I've, I've married this, I've ruined this relationship." Well, I see these messages going that everything is really, in discussion right now between the two of them. And I go, oh my gosh, what did I do? I just asked questions. What happened here? And so they quit like after like three-quarter of a year, and they were happy. Um, I think they both came out really well with really great ideas for the future, how they want to move on. But I've learned so much during this coaching period with them of how people can respond so differently to just questions of how, what your plans are. And I'm not broken at those times, but when somebody's telling, this stuff of what happened after the call, I feel it. I feel it, right? I go like, oh my gosh, what happened here? Did I do something really bad for them? And so, but in general, yeah, I think, I have a very specific way of coaching with habits, like, what we do on Coachdotme. And I think for example, if you have off days, take use small goals, right? A client of me was responding just this morning. I was asking, so what are your goals for today? She says, well, actually, I don't really have goals. I'm just tired of the whole week. It was a busy week. I'm just physically tired. I said, well, just maybe a goal of you could be that you relax, right? That's a goal. That's a great goal. You can use tiny goals, right? To just have two tiny goals that you want to accomplish, and you feel really better after that. So I'm just giving them a way to deal with the situation, to stay in a situation. But like, Chris already said, is just, you know, sit with it and not really pretending that you're a therapist, right? So I'm still a coach. I'm not a therapist. Sometimes it feels like that, but I'm not. I'm really not.
I like that you mentioned the specific strategy of focusing on a habit, because I think that is the gift of habit coaching, and that is the gift of the keystone habit, is to some degree, I think, to even start with a keystone habit, to acknowledge a keystone habit, and to coach through the lens of a keystone habit, is to somewhat acknowledge that chaos is going to occur at some point in the future, or at some point in the relationship, because that's kind of one of the benefits of a keystone habit is is I wouldn't call it foreboding. I would just call it like acknowledgement that life has its ups and downs. And sometimes when life is really up, it's challenging to do our habits. And then when life is down, it can be challenging to do our habits. And I love the point you make because I think it's valid in that helping a client navigate a crisis starts long before the crisis. In other words, if you've really worked with a client to, and we're going to stick with the word keystone habit because it's what we believe in, but if you've worked with a client to establish a habit, to establish a minimum activity level, whatever that, floss one tooth, put your shoes on, eat one vegetable, journal one line, whatever it might be. If you've established that with a client, and maybe they're doing great, Chris, maybe they're walking 2 hours a day normally, and then crisis hits, well, you can fall right back down to that keystone habit that you've already, like, pre-decided, when something happens, here's what we're going to do. Sure, jump in.
On that point, Kendra, it's if people know my coaching, I put a big emphasis around resilience. And if you can help people become more resilient in, as you say, sticking to a keystone habit, they think they're being resilient for that habit, but actually that resilience skill can be very much used in other areas of their life or when something comes along that they're unexpected. I couldn't remember the saying. I was out for a long run this morning. I was trying to remember this saying about being uncomfortable on purpose
Mm,
makes it easier to be uncomfortable when it's not on purpose. So put yourself into those uncomfortable situations on purpose by design, and then the discomfort that comes along that's wasn't expected or out of your control, then you're more likely to be able to work through it than if you hadn't put yourself in those uncomfortable positions on purpose.
great. Lydia, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I just wanted to challenge Chris a little bit. I love that. One, I agree that we're not therapists, and we have to really guard those boundaries, understanding where it's beyond, and actually advising our clients to to talk to someone when we feel it's really necessary. I think this is the situation where it's mostly important. But at the same time, I think we should not take what clients tell us at a face value. One of the benefits of coach is that we challenge, or if we're being coached, we're being challenged so often. And we're going to jump into coaches being in chaos, and I'm going to present maybe my case. But I'm the one who pushes through chaos. Like, I'm fine, everybody's crashing down, melting down, I'm fine, I'm going through it, and I'm telling it, and I'm smiling, I'm doing this stuff. But I don't think it might not be true. And again, I'm not saying this is the situation. It may be vice versa. So the person saying they're melting down, but again, you can challenge that. So I think there is a fine line, and you correctly said, Chris, we're not going to get it every time, right? But challenging our clients when they say they're fine, that might be true, or it actually might not be. And asking the right question that can help them understand how they really feel, I think that would be a really good coaching job. That
All right, I
was.
want I wanna encourage Scott to chime in. You joined us. We're on the kind of the client side of the
Want me
equation.
to share? Do you want me to share the 4x4 at this
Yeah,
point?
it's rough, absolutely. I think we'll replace it with a better graphic, but this is a graphic that
We
we're
should use one of your AI tools.
well, that we did, and that's why it's a little unpolished, but we're at least using this. We whipped it up after our conversation on Wednesday to just give a little structure to where we're at. Scott, what we're first on is when a client is feeling, or we suspect that a client is feeling the intensity, whether it's they've lost a parent that they're dealing with, they've got a geographic natural disaster going on, they've got a war going on, whatever it might be, and how you think about that as a coach.
I think for us as a coach, and I'm not sure, exactly what's been talked about up till now, other than what I heard after I joined, but I think a lot of times we're served really well by just keeping that framework of curiosity. And it's the judgment free zone. It's you're freaked out. I'm not going to get freaked out by the fact that you're freaked out. I'm going to get curious about why are you freaked out, and what can we do about it, or what actions have you taken, or what's worked in the past, or how are you really feeling? By the same token, if they're not freaked out, and it's kind of like maybe they should be a little freaked out, well, why aren't you freaked out? And I may not ask it literally, why are you freaked out? Why are you not freaked out? But it boils down to, don't ever, as a coach, don't ever accept things based on an assumption or based on your first read, but challenge yourself to ask the questions, to dig a little deeper, or to ask the next question that goes a little further. When it comes to like what Chris is talking about building resilience, I think a lot of the reason that we don't build resilience is because we don't ever get into that metacognition mode of thinking about our behavior, or thinking about our thinking. We're just reacting, we're not acting. And especially with intense situations, it's natural to fall into that kind of fight, flight, freeze, react mode. And sometimes asking those questions and being curious can help you. It naturally moves you out of that mode without ever beating them up or belittling them, or the why don't you just get over it kind of thing. Even unintentionally, we can send that message sometimes by just saying, oh, you've got the skills to deal with this. But if they don't believe they have the skills to deal with that, then telling them that doesn't help. It just almost belittles their position. So it's a weird balancing act of not buying into it, but also not ignoring it. And as coaches, I see the biggest mistake is we ignore it
Mm.
because we're uncomfortable with it. So we just completely ignore it, and don't acknowledge the fact that, you seem a little tightly wound today. What's going on? Tell me more about the situation, or do you need to, you know, let's acknowledge that at least. And even if they come back and say, well, I really don't want to talk about it. Okay, well, I just wanted to acknowledge that I can kind of feel the energy, and if we need to address that, we can. But what do you want to talk about, or what do you want to concentrate on today?
All right, good stuff. We're about at the half mark, and I don't want to neglect the kind of the other side of the matrix, and that is when coaches have brief or perhaps enduring. I saw a headline the other day. Perma crisis is the new phase that we somewhat seem to be in as a world. Um, and if you as a coach have experienced brief or long-term crises, does that impact how you coach? Have you developed strategies? What, because I perhaps think there are more and more coaches that are impacted by this, and to the point below, we can't just ignore it. We can't just pretend that this isn't happening, and that it's not ho to show up for a client who's hurting when you're hurting is a tough challenge. And so I guess, Lydia, I want to kick it over to you if you don't mind to kind of start this conversation and how you think about it.
Yeah. And I don't think I have the answers, and I'm probably not the best practice. Um, I think showing up to our clients, even when we're in crisis, but acknowledging that could be a really good, I don't know, example situation, because we are humans, we're not machines, right? If people wanted someone who is like always there or always ready, that would be a different type of coach. but we are humans, and I think it's actually could be a relationship building point, but we have to be, and I need to improve on that, be more transparent and communicate better as coaches when we are not at our best. And if we don't feel we can do things, then, you know, just be more transparent and be more open, offering options. Like, I like what Scott said, like offering options is a good time. Maybe they're at the highest and you're at the lowest. Well, maybe then it's not the best time to meet, because you're going to bring them down. So I think that's what I'm thinking. Again, I don't have a recipe, but my thoughts are in this direction. I think we still being open, transparent, don't hide it, because that's not a good strategy in my point of view. And then giving options. If people are welcoming this, then obviously it could be a good relationship building point.
Thank you for sharing, and it's tricky. I think I got this lesson in 2017 with the hurricane, and prior to that, I think I was what you described, like the brick wall between real life and coaching life. Like, I didn't. There was a very thick wall between real life and coaching life, and I didn't really let anything that was happening in real life get through to the coaching life. But then a hurricane happened, and that wall that wall tumbled, very literally and figuratively, and I had to be more transparent. And I thought I would lose, who wants to be coached by somebody who's in the middle of a natural disaster? I thought I would lose all my clients, and in fact, I didn't lose any. And at that time, I was coaching very actively. I probably had 65 or 75 clients at that time, mostly chat, maybe 20% of that phone calls, in addition to the chat. So I do think the format matters too, and there are um, I'm going to say some advantages to chat coaching, in that it's less, oh, what's the word? It's easier to hold it together to write a message than it takes less for me. It takes less. I can manage emotions even easier to compose a thoughtful message than to be on a phone call or be on a. So I can be a little bit diminished emotionally and still message well. Whereas if I had to show up for a phone call or a video call, those might need to be postponed. Chris, jump in.
I think that's a really valid point, because most of my coaching career has been face to face. So how you come across messaging, you can to some degrees kind of hide that, but people can see tension on your face, or stress and so forth. But on the other side, you talk about the brick wall between coaching and real life. There is that element of that people might use you as their rock, and if you are showing that you're just as vulnerable and and in bad shape as them, it's kind of like, well, that's not the relationship that I want with you. So depending on the client, like I have some clients, it's a really, really interesting, a bit of a sidetrack here, but I think it relates, is I've had clients for up to 20 years. And you think there's some sort of relationship, friendship for it, but as soon as they stop being clients, I don't see them again. Really. Now, that might be me and my personality, but you think after 20 years, you would have a relationship beyond the coaching, but clearly that they were just there for the coaching. I was there for a certain role and a purpose. And when I was no longer needed for that role or purpose, you know what I mean? So they came to me for a particular role. I fulfilled that role. When the role wasn't there needed anymore, they just moved on. Or it could be after 20 years, they just had enough of me.
We're going to tease you and go with that one. Well,
yeah, Erica's
what
would be moving for 19 years, so I've got one more year left
there you
of
go.
Erica.
There you go. I mean, I
Before
think
she realizes.
the thing that we're pointing out in the universe of coaching, that's a big umbrella, right? And so a coach, and I think the point that maybe I'm most passionate about is decide in advance. Think about some of these things in advance so that you're not coming up with the plan at the same time you're dealing with your your crisis, right? Much the same way, when I ran a resort that hit by a hurricane, we had literally a big red book, look kind of like one of those. That was the plan, what to do when a hurricane threatens, and yes, you had some decisions to make, but to some degree, the plan was mapped out, and it helped. And so I think as a coach, it's not unforeseeable that you're gonna lose somebody close to you, that somebody close to you is going to be ill. If you're in Texas, that you're gonna have a natural disaster. And if you're in a war zone, maybe I hate to say it, but maybe plan for war. So if you're a coach and you've got threats in that matrix, I in advance pay attention to I think pay attention to what your threats can be and think ahead of time. If this happens, here's my hypothesis on how I think I'd like to handle it. Then you've at least got a starting point. It may or may not fit the situation exactly, but you might say, if the power is going to be out for more than an hour or two, I'm going to A, send a bulk message, B, postpone all of my anything that's more than a chat, boom, 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 kind of create your checklist so that when it happens, you're not like, ooh, where do I even begin um, with this? I think that's
Mhm.
my only thesis is
Yeah.
have a plan a bit ahead of time.
Just, I agree. Just wrapping up from what I was saying, and it touched on, I think Lydia said it, having another outlet than your clients
Yeah.
is really helpful, because I like coming on these calls every week. I talk to other coaches, and we can have a bit of a chat, a bit of a moan, bit of a, dig at things and stuff like that. And it's like, right, got that out of my system. And then you go and face a client and they don't, because it's very hard, because you're human. It's very hard not to project maybe what you're going through onto that person, especially as someone, as I was saying, has been with you for many years and you know them and you know their family and you just know them. It can be very tempting to suddenly become the sessions about two friends having a chat, but actually, no, it's a client and a coach. But if you've had a group of people or an outlet where you can be able to express those things, then I think that's a big part. And I think coaching can be quite a lonely job. Well, I found it is, and I've always tried to be part of groups where I can just chat. And actually, when you hear other people talking about the same problem, you go, okay, just not me. And everyone's got the same type of problem. And this is how they got through it. Okay. Because sometimes your clients can just stand there and go, and you can see on their face, I hear what you're saying, Chris, but I don't know what to say. There's nothing, this is not my field of expertise. And it's like, oh, yeah, fair enough.
All right, so
Um,
shameless plug for we didn't even plan this, but shameless plug for our coach community and mastermind. Great, great, great.
mm,
It's why coaches need coaches. And again, that could be directly, I need to hire Chris because I need to get healthier and I know he's great at health, but it also could be mastermind groups or other communities, the Coachdotme community, plugging in other ways, the mastermind group that we have. It, it's finding places that you get value added to you, separate from the value you're adding to clients, because when you're working with clients, in a very real way, the energy flow is from you to them. Not that we don't get energized by really good interactions with clients. Doesn't matter. It's still from you to them. You're the more active, you're the guide. So you're playing chess in your head a lot of times. You're thinking of the next question, you're thinking about the next activity, you're thinking 3 steps down the road, you're trying to get feedback, all of that. Where whenever you're being coached, you're receiving that energy, and we need sources of receiving as well as giving, or else we drain our batteries. It and again, there's different ways you can do that. I'm not saying there's one solution to that problem, but find the ways to get your battery recharged, or else you're going to fall into the trap of expecting your clients to always recharge your battery. And guess what? It's not going to work. Long term, that is not a good solution to the problem.
It was like on Wednesday, as Scott said, is about recharging your battery and stuff like that. And this is not a criticism to how this call ended on Wednesday, but it did end earlier than normal because whatever, circumstances. And after I got off the call, I went, oh, I've been a bit shortchanged here. I was I was hoping to spend an hour with you guys, and then it was only 40 minutes. You know what I mean? Again, not criticism. It was just like, oh,
that's
okay.
fair. The power went out shortly after. If it makes you
all
feel
right, so it didn't matter. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. But what happens is you look forward to being part of something, like Scott was saying, because it gives you energy, it gives you confidence, it builds your self-esteem and value, and which is good because sometimes you might subconsciously try to get that from your clients, and that's not their job, that's not their role, that's not what they're paying you for. So yeah.
And all of that being said, now to go back to what Lidia shared at the beginning, that doesn't mean that I never share with my clients something that I'm going through. There are times where that becomes, but again, in my head, I'm trying to think through, why am I sharing what I'm going through? If I'm sharing to get sympathy, or for them to recharge my battery, or for them to give me advice, or for them to whatever, okay, that's one thing. If I'm sharing it because as part of the coaching relationship, as a coach, I believe in the art of coaching, it's beneficial to share this right now. And beneficial, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take action because of it. It just means there's a reason behind it. I'm not just sharing to share. I'm sharing with a purpose. And again, that pretty fine line. And do we get that right all the time? Oh no, because we're people and we're going to screw it up. And and again, to Chris's point, occasionally you're sharing that thing and you see their face kind of go, and it's like, oh, yep, nope, I overshared. I went a little further than maybe I should have. Let me pull back.
And Scott, I want to add to your point, and again, challenge a little bit what Chris said. Like us being the rock. Like, I think in many situations that would be valid. But again, it's us knowing what are the strengths and the weaknesses of our client. For some client, maybe that's the right approach. Maybe that's what they're looking for in you. For others, actually, if I take the client hat on, like for me, it would be beneficial to see that, Chris sometimes doesn't do things. Like, it would help me to say that, it's not just me who is broken. Chris is also, it's human, it's normal. So it might be normalizing some of the things for me because I have the perfectionism kind of going strong for me. So for some clients, it may be good to be always kind of the rock, be always there, support them. But for some, might not be, or actually might be beneficial to show different elements of us. I really love Scott's point on intentionality. And that's hard. That's hard. So we need to be not only mindful what's going on in our life, but also mindful of each individual client relationship, individual clients' needs, and put them above ours. I guess that's what I'm hearing from Scott's point, and that's a high level mastery of coaching.
Just on that point, Lydia, showing your clients another side of yourself, and yeah, I do make mistakes, and so from there, when I go out for a run every morning, I do a little thing to cameras and my thoughts of the day and stuff like that. And one of my clients said the other day, said, "You take it so seriously. It's like, why don't you smile?" And I go, "No, that is my smile. I'm actually intentionally trying to smile." And they go, "Oh, it looks like you're so serious." I said, "I've just got out of bed 10 minutes ago. I'm out for a run. This is what you get. I'm not trying to put on anything. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. This is what I'm like after getting out of bed 10 minutes ago and running. This is who I am." So there's that element of being true to yourself. But sometimes clients kind of go, "No, I don't want that you. I
Well,
want the other you."
and I want to challenge you there, and I love it, Chris. I watch. You're ahead of me, and I love it. And try being a girl and doing that when you roll out of bed. Just saying. The feedback is even more fun. But I think that it's okay when some people see more of us and say, "I don't like that." I think that's actually good. Because I think if we're not sharing enough that some people can say, "That's not for me," then we're not sharing enough for another group of people to go, "Oh, that is for me. This is exactly the kind of coach that I want." I want somebody that's a rock 90% of the time, or I want somebody that, struggles every week and gets over it, whatever. I'm parsing a little bit artificially, but I do think the more we share and the things like your daily videos help us show up and give more surface area to who we really are so that the clients that are attracted to that can go, "Okay, I'm in." And the clients that are not, you can go, "Great, let me help you find another coach in the Coach.me community that's a better fit for what you're looking for, even for this stage of life." Right?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody needs something different at different stages of life. So I love that you're doing it. I love that you're really you. And I love that you're okay if some folks say, that's not for
Yeah.
that's not for
You
me.
can still
It,
smile a little bit more, Chris. Please do.
the thing is, I am smiling. That is my smile. Just
No,
going.
we've seen your smile. We've seen your smile. You can't kid us.
Oh,
Yeah.
you just gotta do one a week with your dog, and then we'll see you
Yes.
smile.
Yeah. There is an element as well, especially in my line of work in the health industry, that there are a lot of people out there. Uh, they kind of are selling or marketing a story that they've been through. You see this all the time. I lost 150 pounds and now I'm running marathons. I don't have that story behind me. I've always run. I've always been in good shape and things like that. So as you said, Kendra, there's some people who says, "Well, I can't relate to you because you haven't gone through the same chaos or hardships that I've been through. I need someone who that." But on the other side, they actually might be better off with people who haven't gone through that story, because I could teach them a life that they haven't lived. Yeah. So you're right. You're not going to hit everyone all the time perfectly. And it is being, as Scott was saying to a degree, just be yourself and sometimes show your clients that this is just who I am. And go with that. As I said earlier about having, people see me in front of my dog, they go, "That I've never seen this side of you. This is a bit weird." Um,
This is
so
this is the hack. This is the hack. Once a
yeah,
week, you go with your dog and take the
yeah,
video.
yeah. Unfortunately he's getting a bit old and he can't run with me anymore.
Yeah, put him in a
Um,
backpack.
yeah, yeah. You see a video of me just dragging him. Come on, it's for a video. It's for YouTube. Come on, dog.
You're gonna ruck.
Um,
I like Scott's
yeah,
idea. You gotta get a rucksack, put the dog on your
Put
back,
him in
and
a
yeah,
backpack.
right.
Run with it.
yeah. But yeah, it's getting that line between being yourself and but also being the rock that people maybe want you for as well. And it's that fine balance, which I don't think anyone's ever mastered in history. You get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. And, you know, some people the same people who said, oh, you should smile more, might wake up one morning and actually don't need a smiling Chris. They may need someone to just say, come on, move your ass, get out of bed. You know, if I started saying, hey, everyone, good morning. What a beautiful morning it is. You're going to have the best day ever. You can be yourself and all this. They'll go, who's this? Who is this? And also, I couldn't keep that up every day for the rest of my life. I can't be that person that I have to think about being. I do that for maybe a couple of weeks, but I couldn't do it forever.
And kind of to sum up all of it, and it's on both sides, the client side as well as the coach side. I think what we're really talking about is authenticity. It's being authentic to ourselves, but also being authentic and letting our clients be authentic to themselves and where they are in the journey and where they are today and where they are at this moment. And it's, you know, if you lean into that authenticity on both sides, it helps you move away from there's one way, it's always going to be perfect. There's, you know, fake, you know, the Chris, the fake you know, that kind of thing. And it lets you just lean into, no, this is who I am and this is how I coach and this is who I coach. And guess what? Some people are going to love that. Some people are going to hate it. Okay, that's fine. You know, because all I'm interested in is the people that I'm the right coach for. I don't need to coach everybody. You know, there's somebody out there that they could come to me and I'd be like, you need to hire Erno. That you're not a good fit for me, but man, Erno would be awesome for you. And that's perfectly okay. You know, I refer out to other coaches a dozen times a year or more, you know, because it's like I meet with the client, it's like, nope, you know, we are not going to have fun together. And I need you to have somebody that's the right fit for you. So let's find you the right coach. And it's kind of being secure enough and authentic enough to recognize that and be okay with that, I think is important, because if we're not authentic and we're not allowing our client to be authentic, then how can real change happen?
Good stuff. All right. So we got authentic as a keyword. I think curiosity when we were thinking about our clients, you know, holding space for that. And then as a coach, considering, you know, being intentional, being thoughtful, deciding ahead of time whether you're going to share or under what conditions you might share, you know, being thoughtful on that. And are you getting your energetic supply from somewhere else, or could you be subconsciously looking to clients for that? And then I would add the personal plan ahead scenario, and maybe the hurricane hardwired me for for that nearly a decade ago, unfortunately or fortunately. I'm not sure which that is. But thank you all for being a part of the mastermind. We get together every week and talk about, sometimes there are a lot more fun topics than this, but sometimes, it's a heavy topic that is facing coaches. And so we dive in, and we agreed to do kind of a bonus conversation this week to record and share it with the rest of the Coachdotme community, to say, you're not alone in experiencing this, and we're here to help. Whether you join us in the mastermind, chime in the LinkedIn group, or reach out in any
Monthly
way.
coach office hours. These are free, happen every third Wednesday. You're welcome to join. You can register for forever. Yeah, come on. These are great meetings.
All right, fabulous. Well, thank you all for taking the time to be here. Thank you all for listening and watching. And everyone,
thank you for my therapy session today. Very good.